Hello friends, welcome back to the channel, or if it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. My name is Paulie G. Today we're going to be discussing Season 3 of Monster, the Ed Gien story. Now, this came out October 3rd, last Friday. I had finally finished watching all of them. Each episode, hour long. It took me a while to get through it all, but I'm done. I'm on here now because I want to break down and discuss this show with you. I'm going to be diving into each episode and only really talking about the more crucial information from each episode, not all the little things that happen, what is said. I have two thoughts of the show. On one hand, I was super entertained and I kind of liked it. On the other hand, this show's bullshit. I don't understand why the showrunner had to make so much bullshit up, things that just did not happen, things over exaggerated, things that are speculatory at best, things just don't line up in the timeline. Certain things happen before other things, but in reality it's the other way around. If you want to watch the show and you're kind of on the fence about which way to go, do I watch it, do I not watch it, I'll tell you this: if you have a super weak stomach and you don't like gory, sexualized things, I would skip it. If you have a strong stomach and this type of show interests you and you want to watch a series it's kind of fun and you're into true crime, I'd say go check it out. But be warned, there is a lot of gore, there is a lot of sexualized things, and some of the scenes are kind of hard to sit through. But with that said, obviously talking about a man like Ed Gien, I can't not talk about these type of things. So this is your disclaimer right here, right now. Going forward, I can't hold back on this. If you have a weak stomach and you don't want to really hear this stuff, that's fine. Like the video and get on out of here. But if you want to stay and hear the things that happen and understand what is true and what is not true, stick around, because we're going to dive right into this whole series right now, starting off with episode 1. In episode 1, we obviously meet Ed Gien, we meet his mother Augustus, and we start to see them throughout the first episode build up their relationship. Well, we get to see what their relationship was sort of kind of like. Ed Gien's mother was a very big Christian, especially in the early 1900s, in the 30s, the 20s, 30s, 40s, until her passing. She was very, very, very Christian. She taught her boys, Ed and Henry, that the Bible is the only way. Women are all sinners and gross and not to be around them. She was super against having sex for fun. She said sex was only for making babies. Period. End of story. One brother wanted to go live a life of normalcy, and Henry wanted to move out of the Gien farm, find a wife, do all that fun stuff that all of us want to do. Ed, on the other hand, wanted to please his mother. He very much loved his mother, so he believed her. We get to meet Adeline, the quote-unquote girlfriend of Ed Gien, which I highly doubt. This never happened. Ed Gien didn't like women. He was the weirdo in the town. Trustworthy, hard-working, yeah. But I don't think he was going out there trying to find a wife. I don't think he was trying to do any of that stuff. His mother would forbid it. But in the show, Adeline is his girlfriend, and I don't understand why that most of this show, in like nearly every episode, if not every episode, she's such a big focus. Like, things that's happened in this show involving her that never happened, she's irrelevant to the Ed Gien story. Why is she here? Maybe so we as the viewers can connect, but it's not necessary. We're going to talk about her more, but briefly, because in real life she's a non-factor. but the show makes it seem very much like a factor. We get to see in episode 1 Ed Gein kill his brother. He hits him over the head with a log after he comes back to tell Ed that he's going to be moving out. He's found a divorced woman that he wants to marry. And Ed said, Mum's not going to like that. And he kills him. Now, in real life, that didn't happen. Real life, they were doing a burn off on the property. Fire got out of control. And after the fire was put out, Ed Gein reported to the detectives that his brother was missing and happened to just walk the cops straight to his body. There's a lot of rumors, speculatory, and that he did kill his brother. I believe that he probably most likely did kill his brother, but we don't know that for a fact. In the show, it makes it very much seem like he just did it. What I found to be very weird is how we didn't start the show off from the very start, seeing the Ed Gein family as a whole, getting to learn how his mother was not happy in her marriage. The man that she married was useless. He was a drunk. All the money that he earned, he just wasted away on alcohol. And I think deep down that she probably regretted marrying him and wanted not to be with him, but she was Christian, so she couldn't divorce him. That would be silly. She would end up burning in hell. But we skip over his dad. There's a brief scene with his father in a later episode. It's so irrelevant, so it doesn't matter. We've pretty much skipped over the dad. The mum ended up having a stroke after the brother was dead, after the brother died. She ended up having a stroke a few months later. We see that in the show. And then we end episode 1 with the mother dying, which sets Gien on a path of destruction. In episode 2, we start off with the man who wrote the novel for Psycho and Alfred Hitchcock, who produced and directed the Psycho movie. In this, we just see them talking about the movie and how it's going to change the world. It's so stupid. I don't understand why this is in here. All the characters that he loosely inspired, Norman Bates, Leatherface, and Buffalo Bill, are in this show. Buffalo Bill's in it very briefly, but the other two are in it a hell of a lot more than I even wanted him to be in. Sure, you could have mentioned that he inspired these characters. Why are we spending so much time on this stuff? It doesn't matter. None of it matters. And then we get to see Ed kill his known first victim, Mary Hogan. She was a bartender who owned her own bar. She was a very strong lady. She reminded Ed of his mother, and that's probably the reason why he killed her. In the show, they show her son showing up to check on her, and then he reported to the cops, which did not happen. She just went missing one day, and it wasn't discovered for many years later, until many years later, when they actually discovered Ed Gein and his crimes. But after he kills his first victim, he gets this brilliant idea of starting to grave rob, which is kind of weird because in real life he was grave robbing for many years before he even killed Mary Hogan. And he would dig up these middle-aged ladies and use their body parts for art projects, let's call them. He made a heap of chairs, he made a heap of lamps, and he also ended up making a bodysuit and some masks and things of these natures, which kind of strange because I believe personally that Ed Gein didn't ever feel like a man. Ed Gein probably most likely wanted to be a woman, but with the age that he grew up in, that was probably most likely going to be unacceptable. Not like it is today. If Ed Gein came along today, he could probably just become a transgender and all would be good. But this happened in the early 1900s, so he started grave robbing, and he thought the best thing would be to make a bodysuit to make him feel like a lady. And then we end the episode 2, with Adeline and Ed breaking up. I again don't think this happened. And then we start episode 3 with the police showing up looking for Mary Hogan. The police never showed up to the Ed Gein farmhouse until much later on. But Ed did, allegedly, walk around the town telling everybody that she was at the farm. I don't know why anyone wouldn't be like, oh, well, let's go check it out. But apparently nobody wanted to until it was too late. Then Adeline and him decide to get married. I doubt it. But they get married. They want to get married. They want to start a family. Ed doesn't think he'll be a good father. So she suggests to him, why don't you go start babysitting? Be around some kids. Ed Gien did babysit. He was very known for babysitting in the town. He babysat all of the children most of the time. In the show, he babysits one family, one time. He takes the kids back to his house, does some weird magic tricks with some weird body parts at the house, and scares the absolute shit out of them. That never happened. Ed was actually really good with kids, apparently. Of everything that I've read, he was a very good babysitter. And then he loses that job. And then we get to meet the girl who in the show took his babysitting job, Evelyn Hartley. Now this lady, this teenage girl, was kidnapped and murdered. And there's been rumours for a long time that Ed Gien was the one that did this murder. But there's no proof of this. They didn't find any of her belongings or her at the Gien farm. They found her clothes on the highway. They did find blood everywhere, so same definitely happened to this poor girl. But unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to really know. But I'm pretty sure that Ed didn't do this one. But he kidnaps her, takes her back to the house, and then proceeds to kill her in a famous Texas Chainsaw Massacre scene. The scene where Leatherface gives the grandfather the hammer, and they put the girl over the bucket, and he hits her with the hammer, or tries to at least. That exact scene plays out, except Ed does kill her like that. Except he puts his mother, or a lady, I think it's his mother, in the chair, and tries to do that scene. And after it's done, we actually get to see that scene. They filmed it with their own actors in their own way. Yeah, I don't really get it. There's a lot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's like 10-15 minutes at the end of this episode of just Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, person who wrote the script talking to his friend about the movie, then filming the movie, bits of the movie, the famous scene of the girl walking up to the farmhouse. You know the scene I'm talking about. They shoot the famous scene of Leatherface chasing her through the night, through the forest in the night. They show Leatherface. Strange. Again, I don't see what the point of putting this shit in the show was. Moving on to episode 4, we start the episode off meeting Bernice Warden, the hardware store owner. She ran this store, and in this show they act like that she and Ed had more than just transactional relationship. The show makes it seem like they had an actual relationship. He asks her out for dinner, they go back to her house, they do the stuff, they end up having fun time. But that never happened, and I don't think Ed ever did that with any woman. I don't think he did that, period. Super strange that this is in the show. There's more to do with Adeline in the show, in this episodes, but there's no point of really talking about it. And then we get to meet the hunters. There are 2 hunters that did go missing in Wisconsin. Expected that Ed Gien may have had something to do with it, but I highly doubt it. Ed didn't kill or do anything related to a male. He killed 2 women, 2 middle-aged women, and he dug up bodies of middle-aged women. It's not his MO. Why would he kill 2 hunters? But the show makes it seem like he does. They're trying to find some warmth. They're in the cold. They stumble upon the Gien farm. They go into the barn to try and get some warmth. Ed's in there kind of doing his thing, making them more suits. They run off because Ed grabs a chainsaw and chases after them and puts on a face like Leatherface, and there's more Texas Chainsaw Massacre stuff, and then he kills them with this chainsaw. A goddamn chainsaw. Ed Gein did not use a damn chainsaw ever. I highly doubt he ever even was able to afford one. But he most definitely did not kill these hunters. After the more Texas Chainsaw Massacre scenes, we move straight on to episode 5, where him and his girlfriend are having some differences. She suggests him, why doesn't he go shack up with a dead body? So he does, and Ed Gein never had sex with a dead body. He came out and said that he never had sex with a dead body because he couldn't stand the smell. But they show it. They show the whole scene, and this is one of those scenes that's kind of hard to sit through because it's kind of weird. But Ed's a weird person. Like, what were we all expecting? A normal show? Adeline ends up breaking up with him finally and moving to New York City. But that doesn't last long because she moves straight back in like a few scenes after. So, pointless. And then there's this more fun time with more bodies that didn't happen. Moving on. At the end of episode 5, he ends up killing Bernice Warden in the shop. That he goes to the shop to break up with her, and then ends up killing her. But she had a son who was a deputy, and he shows up trying to find her. And they see the crime scene, and then they find a box that was like a present to Ed with Ed's name on it, and that's how we end episode 5. Bernice Warden and Ed had nothing more than a transactional relationship. He went into the store to buy antifreeze. She wrote a receipt up for antifreeze with Ed Gein's name on it. For whatever reason, as she was getting the antifreeze ready, he decided to kill her, and then he took the cash register. That's how the cops discovered about Ed Gein. But in the show, they see the present, and they decide to go to the Gien farm to see what's going on, see if they can find her. And this takes us into episode 6. Episode 6 starts off with the cops showing up to the Gien farm and knocking on the door, but no one's home, and they just let themselves in. They start finding things, and as they find things, they end up deciding to call for backup. Backup arrives, and all these police officers everywhere, decide to start going through the house and finding things. Ed Gein shows up, and then they end up finding Bernice Warden hung up like a deer. But let's back up, because in real life, the cops didn't just show up and open the door and walk in. The cops showed up and went into the barn and discovered her first. That's when they arrested Ed Gein in town. And then they went into the house and discovered everything. But I guess this makes for more drama. They take Ed to the police station. They interrogate him. He's claiming that he doesn't remember. He does get put into a lie detector test. And that happened in real life. He ended up doing a lie detector test, which I highly recommend you don't do. Ed he pretty much lies about everything in this series. He doesn't claim to know anything. He doesn't do anything. He keeps saying he doesn't remember. Ed Gein did admit to killing the 2 ladies and digging up the dead bodies. After, this sick individual only got a piece of apple pie with cheese. That is the grossest sin I've ever seen in my life, and it's the one thing in this whole series that made my stomach move. Apple pie with cheese. Ill. If you are into this, prove it. Show yourself, because that is disgusting. But after that, we move to episode 7, and the police officer, the detective, the son of Bernice Warden, ends up deciding that he's going to sell off the property. Now, they did decide to sell off the property, but as in the show, somebody who knows burnt down the farm. Burnt everything down. There's nothing left except for the car. I believe the car is still out there. I think it's in a museum maybe, or somebody somebody who owns a circus has it. I can't remember, but it is out there still. In the show, they kind of make it look like the sheriff decided to burn down the house. Now, that's the right call. You shouldn't be selling off houses, items of these disgusting serial killers, mass murderers. Just get rid of it all. Destroy it. move on. As this episode goes on, we get to see his life in the mental asylum. They discover that he's not fit for trial, so they just send him to a mental institution, and that is where he lived out the rest of his life. In this series, there's a lovely lady, Salty, she's a nurse. She gives him his money, and then he decides that he wants her to buy her some things. He wants bras and underwear, because he's a weirdo, and some ham radios. This never happened, but he sends it to two people that he really wants to talk to. The German lady who he was fascinated with in the show. She was in the comic books, and she did the exact same things that he did during World War II. But we come to find out that the ham radios were never actually sent to anybody, and then it's not even plugged in. So he's kind of losing his mind because he was diagnosed as schizophrenic. And when he finds out all this information from the doctor, he sees that he kills one of the nurses with a chainsaw. He's talking to the ladies. He's doing all this weird shit. The doctor finally tells him that none of that's real because he's schizophrenic, and that's how we end episode 7. Ed's time in this mental asylum was well documented. He was a model citizen according to all records. He never did anything that was weird. He never stood out of place. He worked with his hands a lot in there. He was making money, good money, because he thought one day he would actually get out, and he wanted to save up all this money and travel the world. He got to work as a carpenter. He ended up making stuff with leather. They let him work with leather still for some weird reason. He made belts and handbags for girls. He did some really weird, interesting stuff that I didn't think they would let him in real life, but in the show, they show him making a nipple belt like he actually did, put out of leather, and then he was wearing the bra and panties and touching himself, which he did a lot in this show. Kind of strange. But moving on to episode 8, and it's the final episode. And this episode was friggin' awesome, but the most made up bullshit ever out of the whole show. Take away the chainsaws and the girlfriend and doing all that weird shit. This episode right here is the one episode that has the most bullshit in it than ever, because we start the episode off with another serial killer, another famous serial killer, probably the most famous serial killer there's ever been, Ted Bundy. And we get to see Ted, and Ted is kind of a big focus on episode 8. After killing some girls and all the stuff that Ted did, FBI gets involved, and FBI wants to know something. And this is where we get the little cool crossover between the Mindhunters, which is also on Netflix, and this show. They show up and they want to talk to Ed, and they end up talking to Ed, and Ed at first doesn't give him anything, but they come back towards the end of the episode, and there's another serial killer who was fascinated with Ed Gien, who apparently wrote him letters, which I don't think ever happened, told him about Ted, and Ed Gien gave the FBI agents Ted's name, the car he drove, everything they need. Ed Gien did never ever help capture Ted Bundy. Ed Gien never talked to the FBI. Ed Gien just worked in the asylum, and he died in the asylum. And that's how the episode ends, with him dying after all these weird cameos from all these other serial killers, Charles Manson, bunch of people. And it's strange. He died of cancer, and that's how the show ends, with him pretty much dying. And then they show that some teenagers destroy his grave, which actually happened. His gravestone's completely gone from his grave. It's now in a museum in Wisconsin because it keeps getting destroyed. Keeps getting taken and bits of it chipped off. And then they announced season 4 will be coming out. But with that said, I would give Monster season 3 a 6 out of 10. It's good, but it's not as good as the other season. I haven't seen season 2, so I can't compare it to it. It's season 1 on Jeffrey Dahmer is absolutely fantastic, way better than this season. I haven't seen season 2. Is it worth seeing? Have you seen the Ed Gein story? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comment section while you're down there. All my social media is down there too in the description. Why don't you go over and follow me? X, Instagram, Letterboxd, Facebook, TikTok. If this show gets to season 5, season 6, who else would you like to see get this type of treatment? Ted Bundy would be a good one. The Golden State Killer would be absolutely fantastic. They like to make bullshit up. They could have him as a cop. He is a cop, but investigating his own crimes. You could do a Ted Bundy and Green River Killer back-to-back seasons. Kind of mix the 2 seasons. I think it would be good. Who else do you think should get a series like this? Let me know in the comment section. Next week, Devil in Disguise, the John Wayne Gacy movie, is coming out. I'll be back here on YouTube for a review of that show. I'll be here on Friday night, Saturday morning for the final episode of Peacemaker with a full review of the show. But until then, guys, be well, stay safe, have yourself a beautiful day, and I'll catch you guys real soon.